Hey, Facebook folks, this is Angela Heath, and this is the 45 Plus Hustle broadcast. No, I am not trying to use some kind of sexy voice or something with you, not at all. I have this pollen got in my throat, and so it's getting back to normal, but my voice is going in and out. So this is going to be a short broadcast. Anyway, I am with TKC Incorporated. We help people monetize their skills using the gig economy and help companies to do things cheaper, faster, and with more efficiency using all of those great resources that are available in the gig economy. Some people call me the gig income guru. I believe if you live 45 years or older, you can earn some money with the skills and talents and interests and hobbies that you have. So, tonight, very quickly, because my voice won't hold out, we're going to talk about failure and comfort. We talked about comfort zone the last time I did a presentation on my own. And a lot of us, most of us actually feel like, we can't be who we are authentically made to be because there's some fear there that blocks us. And so we stay inside this little small space where it's safe, right? So there's all of these people who have wonderful gifts and talents and they've never used them because it's easier to stay in a job that sometimes they hate, to stay in a relationship that is not productive, to stay in an environment that does not feed their soul, but it's easy. It's a comfort zone. Some people say that women in particular, probably men too, but women in particular, that they would rather love the devil they know than try to start a new relationship. So it was all about that comfort zone, that real small space where we keep ourselves because we're afraid. So if we're talking about failure in the comfort zone, then the next logical question is, what is failure? So I looked it up in a dictionary, and basically simple definition is that failure is a lack of success. That really doesn't answer it for me, because I'm sure you know, as well as I know, a lot of people who at one point in their life were considered failures. I mean, we can rattle their names off, right? So how do we really define failure in a practical sense? Does it have anything to do with the number of times we attempt something and it doesn't work? I don't think that's a good definition, because Einstein, he tried like a million times with many of his experiments, and a lot of researchers, they would work on one problem, trying to solve one problem their entire life. And sometimes they never get it, but sometimes they do. So are they a failure because they've been doing experiments around cancer drugs for 7 years and have done, numerous clinical trials? And I mean, what determines in terms of like the amount of time that you dedicate to something and it doesn't bear the fruit that you're interested in having it bear? So I don't think that's like the total definition of it, because there's too many examples where that's just not true. What about the definition of other people? A lot of people will look at us, especially as business builders or people who are trying to find what their next is, and they'll say, that's not a good idea. Nobody's going to buy that. You'll go broke doing that. And all of these ideas of other people will cause us to say, oh, this concept or this business is actually a failure. Let me give you a personal example of that. Many years ago, when I first started consulting, right before I started consulting, I had this project that I was working on, and we were very early out the gate. I talked to these communication experts, and they said to my manager, they said, you don't want to invest a lot of time and money in this concept because it's not going to go anywhere and it has no media value, right? I didn't believe it. I thought it was important. That's why I was working on it, right? Well, regardless of what those experts said with their research and their metrics and everything else, that particular project that I worked on, I produced a corporate manual, and it circulated around the United States. It caused me to travel around the United States speaking to corporations and people in the field of aging. And it helped me establish my thought leadership. So when I went out on my own, I was already established because of that project that the experts said wasn't going anywhere. We have lots of other examples of that. Of course, everybody knows that Michael Jordan's one of his early coaches said that he would not amount to anything, and we know what happened to that. So the definition of what other people say does not determine if something is a failure or not. So what is a failure? I think it is different things to different people. There's a gentleman, his name is James Clear, and he has like these 3 steps that you're to look at if you're in a business or you're pursuing a side hustle or something, to try to figure out if it's a failure. Because the truth of the matter is you have to balance when it's time to have grit, to keep pursuing, keep going, keep managing, versus when you need to pivot and turn. Maybe this concept is not good or the way you're doing it, whatever, but you got to balance those two. You got to know when to move on either side of the road. So he talks about being clear with your vision, which is your why. Your vision has to be powerful. It has to be strong. It has to be motivating, because that why is what will cause you to get out of bed and to keep going when it looks like nothing good is happening. It will keep you hoping and searching and praying and talking to people about this concept to see if it really does have legs or not. So he talks about being clear on your vision. And then, of course, being clear with your strategy. Your strategy is, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Sort of big picture. For example, I love public speaking. So what am I going to do? I am going to find the people, the organizations that can benefit from the content that I want to share. So that's what I'm going to do. Now, when you get into your tactics, you get into exactly how are you going to do it, the very minute little steps you need to take in order to complete that what. So when we're talking about whether or not something is a failure, we've got to look at, our strategy, our vision, our strategy, and our tactics. And now any one of those areas, we may need to make some adjustments. But here's 3 things that I'm going to end with, because my throat is really starting to bother me a little bit. 3 ways that you can avoid being a failure, right? 3 things you can do from the very beginning. First, you have to, before these 3 things, the first thing is to really establish your why. Why are you doing whatever it is you're doing? What is your long-range vision? Who are you, and what do you see yourself growing to be? I see myself growing to be an internationally well-known speaker around the gig economy. That's a big vision. My why behind that is a very personal one, but I'm also a giver. And so I need to earn lots of money in order to give in places where I'm called to give. So you got to figure that part out. That's the foundational stuff you have to figure out, because that's what's going to keep you going. But then here's the quick 3 strategies. Number 1, get out there quickly. The number one problem with a lot of people who claim they want to do something on the side, they want to better themselves, they want to improve, they want to do something, is that they are waiting for the perfect time. They're waiting until they know more. They're waiting for something that will never, ever exist. Get out there quickly. You're never going to have all of the answers. You're never going to have all of the tools. Now, there's a difference between getting out the gate quickly and getting out the gate being totally unprepared. So if you're going to get out the gate quickly, you have to understand the environment, the players, the obstacles. You need to do your research so that even if you don't have like the finished product done, or if everything you have is not perfectly designed by a graphic artist, that's okay. That's really okay. You can still get out there. Get out there quickly. Test it, because you don't know if it's ever going to work until you test it, right? Try to do it as cheap as possible. That's number 2. And that's one thing I tell people about the gig economy. There's so many wonderful tools, and there are talents in the gig economy that can do fabulous things for you at such a discount price. You will be shocked if you don't know about this. For example, when I got my first logo for TKC Incorporated, that logo cost me about 300 and some odd dollars, or 400, somewhere around in there. This was a number of years ago, right? But I've gotten 2 logos done since there for various projects that I worked on, and it cost me like $35, right? And they are fine. Quality of work is still good because I've tapped into the gig economy. Tell you another interesting thing. I worked with people who don't use mail services. There is free mail services, MailChimp. You can do very attractive emails for free up until you get to, like, I think it's 2,000 contacts or something. But a lot of people are still using Outlook to send, messages and try to sell from there, and they look like your product is going to be cheap. So you got to find out, what kinds of things are out there, tools and strategies and talent that you can use in order to get out quickly and then look as professional as you can afford to look. And then third, revise rapidly. You don't want to sit there like, for example, Blockbuster. I don't know if you guys remember Blockbuster, but you used to go to Blockbuster. You physically went there to rent videos. And Blockbuster was like oblivious, apparently, to the fact that there was these streaming services coming across the internet where movies were being made available. And that eventually was going to put them out of business. They didn't even catch the fact that there was somebody right on their tail, Redbox, that would not cause you to come into one store. Blockbuster had stores. You can go to any grocery store, pretty much any of them right now, and find a Redbox where you can get your video, similar to the way you did with Blockbuster, but it's all automated. There is no overhead once they put the machine there. So you got to think about these things, and so you can revise your models quickly, so you can adjust and you can pivot. One story that I did want to share, and then I'm going to, I think, call it a day because my throat is really a little sore. I was reading about Amazon. Let me see if I can still find that. But I was reading about Amazon, and I was reading about the iterations that Amazon actually went through to become what we know it to be today. And I'm just trying to scroll through this to see if I can find Amazon. Hold on just a moment. Amazon. Okay, let's see. All right, I can't find it quick enough. But what I want to tell you is that I didn't know this. But in reading about Amazon, what I discovered that Amazon actually started doing two other businesses before they stumbled upon the model that they have now. And what are they, like gazillionaires now? But they started off with two different business models, both of which, quote unquote, failed. But it led them to the more successful operation that they have right now. So, what's the moral of this discussion? Failure in your comfort zone. So, basically, I guess what I'm trying to say to us, to just reiterate and encourage, most of the self made millionaires, and probably all of them, but I've studied self made millionaires a lot, and almost 90% of them have experienced a great deal of what some other people would call failure. They've tried things, it didn't work, and they moved on to something else. We have to realize that also, because Lord knows I've tried so many things that didn't work, but the thing that I didn't know earlier in my career that I now understand is that I have to look at the research for my business, for the vision, for the strategies that I'm using and the tactics. And I can look at what other people are doing inside and outside of the same industry that I'm in that I can adopt, because if those tactics are working, then they'll work for me too. I also didn't realize that there was something called pivoting, which means that you don't have to totally give up on your dream or totally give up on your model. It means you're just going to tweak it. See, I used to think you either, failed or you succeeded, but there's a lot of stuff in between that happens that we need to pay attention to. So, with that, I want to give you one announcement. And if you are in the DC area, I am going to encourage you to come to the Boom Conference. It is really shaping up to be like a really excellent opportunity for people, especially people who are starting out, growing their businesses, early stage companies. We got tremendous speakers. We've got so many fabulous bonuses. If you look in the Baby Boomer Makes Money group in Facebook, you'll see some of the bonuses that we're offering people. In addition, we are recruiting the best business coaches in the area that you can have some one-on-one time with, growth coaches, franchise coaches, who can help you think through what is your next and how can you grow it so that it booms with excitement and with success. That's why we call it the Boom Conference. Anyway, if you have not registered, I would just encourage you to do that. And with that, I am sorry that this was a little shorter than normal, but my throat is actually starting to bother me because I think I'm talking too much. So this is Angela Heath with the 45 Plus Hustle broadcast. We'll see you next week, and I will probably have a guest. I haven't confirmed it, so I'll announce it by Monday. And see you next week, 7 o'clock, same station.